Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on night one of our breeding webinars. My name is Martina Harrington, and I'm the manager of the FutureBeef Demonstration Farm Programme, Teagasc's flagship suckler demonstration farm programme. We've 22 commercial beef farms spread right throughout the country. The aim of our programme is to demonstrate how you can make your farm more profitable through efficiency, but also how you can reduce your impact on the environment. And these two quite often go hand in hand. We are sponsored by 10 meat processors, and we'd like to thank them for their continued support. And you'll see their names and their logos on the start of Gabriel's presentation. The calving and the breeding seasons are the most important time of the year for suckler farmers, getting that live calf onto the ground, getting the cow and calf out to grass, and getting that mother then back in calf is critical to a profitable farm. We're going to have 3 webinars in the series, pulling on the experience of not us, but of our future beef farmers, who are all well-established, well-respected suckler farmers, which have spent years building up their herds to make them more efficient. Tonight we have 3 farmers. We have Shane Keaveney from Ballinlough in County Roscommon. We have Ruairi Cummins from Kilmagany in County Kilkenny. And we have Ken Gill from Clonbelogue in County Offaly. We'll talk to them about what they have done to make their herds more profitable through meeting the key breeding targets. The session is going to be moderated by Gabriel Trayers, one of our programme advisors. And as we go along, if you have any questions for us, please type them into the Q&A box down there at the bottom of your screen. And when we come to the panel discussion, I'll put them forward to Gabriel and to Aisling, Rory, Shane and Ken. Gabriel, I might share your presentation in the meantime.
Thanks, Martina. My name is Gabriel Trayers, and I'm one of a 3-person team that are working with the FutureBeef Programme. And tonight we want to look at the breeding efficiencies through the use of key performance indicators, or KPIs for short. I suppose maybe you're asking what a KPI is. KPIs are used for all businesses all across the globe. And like anyone that's maybe trying to research something or write something, you're going to Google that, what a KPI is, and I did, and I got 250 million results. So it's a proven way of trying to track performance. And as I said, in simple terms, KPIs are used to measure, track, or monitor performance. It sets the targets for any business in order to reach their goals. And if we were to ask our participants or farmers in the FutureBeef program what your goals are, they probably would center around being more sustainable. And that word sustainable is bandied around a lot now. What does it actually mean? But it probably means that they want their farming system to deliver on profit, but also while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And there's ambitious targets to reduce those emissions by 25% by 2030. And the dry stock sector has always faced challenges, and that's the next challenge is to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. But by breeding more efficiently, that there's win-wins in that. So by winning in order to drive profit, but also by reducing your greenhouse gas emissions. But there are a lot of factors that will have directly influence on whether a farm is profitable or not. But having the correct breeding policy on a farm probably has the biggest influence. It is a starting point or lays the foundation in terms of trying to make it a profit. And if you get that right, you're on going in the right direction. And you'll hear from the 3 lads that while they have very different systems, Rory is on a bull and steer finishing system. Shane is finishing bulls and selling forward store heifers. And Rory is an organic farmer selling steers as well to finish. So while they're all different, they all have maybe 2 things in common. I would say they're all profitable, and their breeding performance is excellent. They're really breeding through excellence, profit through excellence. So where do we find these KPIs? And you can nearly move to the next slide now, Martina. These KPIs are found through the ICBF, and it is a great report for any suckler farmer. Loads of information there to tell us how our breeding performance is on farm. So what are the main key performance indicators? So the calf per cow per year is probably the big one. So the target is 1 calf per cow per year. And no matter what cow type she is, no matter what breed she is, she must deliver on that in order to be efficient. Secondly, we want low mortality. We want to keep that below 2%. So in the ICB report, you will see the next slide that will say we need calving when the cow calves, less than 2% at calving, but also less than 2% at 28 days. So that highlights if it's higher than that, there is an issue. So the issue with the bull choice, or maybe the cow's condition, or we'll say maybe the management of the cow and calf after calving. Is there viruses, is there disease outbreak? So we want to have as many stock going into the trailer for sale as possible. So we want to keep that mortality nice and low. Next up is the 6-week calving rate, achieving a compact calving system. We're targeting there that at least 80% of our cows will calve within 6 weeks, and we'll talk to the lads about that and how they're achieving it. I suppose, and a big one is calving at 2 years of age. Less than 25% of all farmers will calve their heifers at 2 years of age. There's a lot of fear maybe around calving at that stage, and the heifer mightn't grow, she might not go back and calf. And again, we get from the farmers' experiences on the call tonight of how they are calving at 2 years of age. And also is a huge lever, probably the biggest lever in reducing greenhouse gas emissions is calving at 2 years of age versus calving at 3, because calving at 3 means that heifer is around for 1 year longer without producing any offspring. So again, we'll talk to the lads about that. And the 360 5-day calving interval really is closely linked to calf per cow per year, and Aisling and her farmers will talk about that in next Monday night's webinar more closely. So if we move to the next slide, we can see how these a typical report looks like from ICBF. So I dug out Shane's report from 2014 when he kicked off his farming career, and you can see there it's the main KPIs on your left hand side. 1 to 6, you have your calving interval, you have your mortality, you have your calves per cow per year, like I talked about, and the percentage of calved at 2 years of age, and your 6-week calving rate. You have your herd there in the dark black, so you have your 473 days was his calving interval back in 2014, and that compares with the national average of 407. So he was well above the national average there. And over on your right hand side, if you want to have a top performing herd, we want to be hitting these top 10% here. So we want 368 day calving interval. Mortality for Shane back in 14 was quite good, had no mortality, but his calf per cow per year was 0.77. And as typical of a farmer trying to start off a suckler herd and trying to breed a more efficient suckler herd, and it's probably typical of the national average as well. So again, if this was a school report, you were saying probably could do better in this regard. And 25% of his heifers, similar to the national average, calved at 22 to 26 months of age. But in the following slide, you will see that there was, like Shane followed an operation transformation type program, a total transformation, and in the space of probably less than 9 years. That's 9 years ago now, but Shane's report back to 2019 would be very similar to this. So his calving interval is now 360 days. You can see he's hitting the top 10% there of all suckler farmers. His mortality is 0%, so losing no calf at birth and losing no calf at 28 days. Really, really good performance there as well, well below the national average, and in the top 10% as well. His calves per cow per year is 1.07. So excellence in that regard as well. So obviously maybe had a set of twins in there. And all of his heifers are now calving at 2 years, between 22 and 26 months of age. And his 6-week calving rate is 97%. So this is really textbook results when it comes to the breeding performance of a suckler herd. And all of these reports are accessible on ICBF. If you log into ICBF, you don't need to go to your accountant or a consultant. They're all there ready and waiting, and you can easily download them, have a look at them, and see and benchmark yourselves. I said KPI is all about benchmarking, so you can benchmark yourselves against your national average, but also you can benchmark against the top 10%. And if you are in a farmer group or in a discussion group, you can set your farmer group up together and benchmark off each other as well. And that might encourage you to drive on with trying to correct your or be more efficient with your suckler herd. So you can see there Shane's calving pattern, really, really good. He's calving practically in February, March, with a few into April. So on a typical suckler herd that you will look at, you'll see these bars across all months. And that's really not what we want to see if you want to talk about breeding efficiency. So really, really good report. And the last slide is all about, the slide for Ruairi and Ken as well. Obviously, very, very good results there. We see Ruairi Cummins has a 365-day calving interval, no mortality, 4.5%. So he lost 2 calves at 28 days. These are reports from 2023. He had a joint tail in one of the calves. And look, you will have years that there will be little bits of mortality, but we don't want it consistently there every year. His calves per cow per year is almost at 1. 100% of his heifers are calving at 2 years of age, and he's almost 90% of his cows are calving in 6 weeks of age. So really, really good performance there. Ken in the autumn calving system into 2022. You can see there a little bit of mortality, or a good bit of mortality coming into the herd. 0.91 of calves per cow per year, 92% of calving at 2 years of age, and 100% of calving king calves, all these cows and heifers in 6 weeks. So really, really good performance there. And we'll get Ken to explain what went wrong. And as I said, things will go wrong when you have livestock on farms. So your mortality really has gone out of control here, and that has affected his calves per cow per year, and obviously has hit some of his heifers as well. So we'll get Ken maybe to expand on that. And the last slide I have, and this is a picture of Ruairi stock, obviously when the weather was a bit better, and we could all think back to those days, maybe last year with really good weather, really, really good stock, but a really, really simple sum. So if you have 35 cows and they have a calf per cow per year, that's 35 calves to sell, or weanlings to sell. If you're calving at the national average, and you might think 0.87, there isn't a lot of a difference between 0.87 and 1, but on a 35 cow herd, that means just selling 30 calves. So that's 5 extra calves to sell. And if you put a value on them at and they are weanlings, and you're bringing them to weaning at 300 kilos, and you just an average value nowadays are probably higher than that at €3 a kilo. That's an extra €4,500 of output or sales. And not alone that, you have suffered the cost of keeping those 5 empty cows on your system, which is very, very expensive. So really, in efficient breeding, we don't want those type of cows around the place that are having the royal time of it, going around eating costly to feed but producing nothing. So it really, really is a simple sum, but it really does highlight what an efficient herd, a calf per cow per year, will have an impact on your herd. So we're going to talk to Shane now, but first we're going to have a short video to look at his.
My name is Shane Keaveney. I'm farming full-time here in Ballinlough, County Roscommon. We have a herd of about 37 suckler cows here. We're spring calving herd. We finish our bulls at under 16 months, and our heifers then are sold as forward stores. We have a very compact calving here, so the reason for that is you have a group of animals that's the same weight, same age, and from handling them, from doing simple tasks with them, you can be all treated the same. Plus, for me, heifers calving under 24 months, because they're all the same, you have a better choice from selecting the best heifers you have. You're not just going on weight. Plus, with your bulls then, they're all going to factory within a month or 6 weeks. They're not strung out over 2 or 3 months, like, under 6. And that group of stock can be treated the same with the amount of meal they're getting and everything. If you had a group of stock that were varying ages, they'd be all on different allocations of meal. It's a huge saving from a labour point of view. The last 2 years of the calving period has been just under 8 weeks, which was fantastic. But the time we'd finished calving was late March, beginning of April, and it freed you up to concentrate on other stuff on the farm. When I started the herd first, look at calving was strung out from February to May. At that time I was selling weanlings. They weren't fit for selling. You had to carry them over the winter, and they ended up in an expensive calf. By having them early spring calves, they're all coming into the shed, they're all good weights for age. And profitability is very important on this farm. Because I'm farming full time, everything counts. The biggest problem I have is calving pins for cows, to give the cows a little bit of time with their calves afterwards. Ideally 48 hours. The cows calf under the cameras here in this shed, and once I'm happy enough that they're up sucking and everything, I just slip them out through another pin there. Most years you'd get a pin of cows out, say early March, and it takes an awful lot of pressure off the shed. The last few years I've been feeding a good mineral to the cows, pre-calf mineral. As the pin of cows calf, they're switched over from second cut silage to first cut silage, which is 71, 72 DMD. The bull is let in for 10-11 weeks. As I said, the last few years he'd his job done after 2 months.
Great, Shane, and you're very welcome. It's great to have you. And I might just remind
Evening,
people,
Gabriel.
as well that there is a Q&A function on your webinar, so you can ask any questions that you feel that you want answered, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along. Shane, you were lucky to be here. You were in the maternity ward when I was talking to you at 7 o'clock. So how's things going, we'll say, this year?
Yeah, with a bit of a hiccup at the start, but it's kicked on from there. We've 3 cows left to calf now, so, and it's been going well. I think we've only to assist 3 cows calving out of what we've calved, 32 so far. So it's pretty happy with that, you know.
So that's 32 cows calved in 6 weeks and
6 weeks this weekend, yeah.
Yeah,
6 weeks
yeah.
this weekend, yeah.
So you're retired, I'd say, after all that. But as you said in the video, you can really focus on the job in hand, can't you?
Absolutely. Like as I said in the video, you're keyed in, clued in for that amount of time for 6 weeks, and that's all you're focusing on. And just get them calves on the ground live and get them up and going, you know.
Maybe it might take us back to the early days. I know everything is very streamlined now, but just we'll say when you started off farming, and maybe why did you go farming? Maybe.
Well, I suppose back in the early 2000s, my dad took an early retirement scheme that was going at the time. So the farm went into a long-term lease. It came back off that lease in 2013, and I took it over then. So I suppose we'd have started off in 13. I'd have bought in a few suck calves to bring them on as suckler cows, and in 2014 then I suppose we started getting serious about it, and we bought 5 in-calf Solaire cows in, and a Solaire bull, stock bull, and we started off from there. Like when I took over the farm, there was a lot of work to be done with it. Soil fertility levels were low. There was a lot of investment in facilities and that. So it was a hard slog for the first few years. So I suppose I was working off farm then at the time. I suppose around 2017, myself and Grania, my wife, we had a conversation and we decided that I'd go full-time farming, and I suppose with that, with a young family, so I'd be doing the school runs and all that. It just suited our unit, our family,
Yeah.
and it just suited our lifestyle at the time. So, but by doing that, the farm had to be profitable, and I've been very profit driven since then, and streamlining it, as you said, and making sure everything runs fairly smoothly.
And to become more profitable, Shane, like what were the main focus areas back at the start? Like I presume you want to try and build a suckler herd that was going to do the job. Like what were the main focus areas like, or how did you build that herd?
Well, my main focus at the start was I always knew I needed to get your cow type right. There was no point going off with a very maternal or very terminal bull on cows that weren't able for it. So I went with Solaire's because they had a very wide pelvis, and I've found them very good mothers, and they've good milk, and they're great mothers, really, you know. So
Yeah.
that's where I went down that road with them. So we bred off my Solaire bull for the first couple of years, and I retained all them heifers off them, you know.
Yeah.
And like they're still in the herd, a lot of them, and their daughters are still there, and this, that, and the other. So
Okay.
they've been very, very lucky for me, really, you know.
And we've seen there the two calving reports from 14 up compared to 23, and like they're like, as I said, operation transformation, they're like chalk and cheese. But like, how did you actually go about it? Like, we'll say the long calving season. Like, why did you like maybe for people listening that you had a big calving spread? Like, how did you actually go about it?
Well, I suppose at the start, as I said in the video, it was strung out till May, and I know one May there we lost a calf calving, you know, and I was annoyed with myself really because I could have. It was my fault in ways. Reminders and other things. So I just said we have to tighten this thing up. It can't be strung out as long as it did. So we initially said 12 weeks. We get it down to 12 weeks. And from there, we brought it down to 10. And 10 has always been my goal. Like, as I said, we've managed to get it down to 8, but 10 is where I'm happy with, like, you know. So the first year, if we decided to bring it down to 10 weeks too soon, we'd have had an awful lot of cull cows, and I didn't want that because I was busy building the herd. So believe it or not, we didn't lose that many cows along the way by doing it a bit slower, because you know, we were just tightening it by a couple of weeks every year until we got to where we are, you know.
So the 14 weeks, like that means you pull the bull kind of 2 weeks early. You had a kind of a 14-week breeding period, 12 weeks the following year. Is that kind of the way?
Yeah, like to finish your breeding season is the day you pull the bull away. So it's not the day you think he's finished. It's the day you take him out of the field. So if you have a set goal like that, that's where your breeding season ends, you know?
Yeah, okay. And I suppose like you probably, and that's probably one way of building your herd, you had a maternal focus, but like there was probably a negative in that though with your males, wasn't there? And maybe that's the way you fell into your system then.
There was, because for the first few years, I suppose up to 2017, I'd have been selling weanlings in the mart, and a Solaire bull weanling, he was a tough sell now, in fairness, you know. So there wasn't much demand for them, so I was getting very poor prices for them. So it happened to me 2 years in a row that I got bad price, and I said it's not going to happen a third year. So I decided to go down the bull finishing route with them, you know.
Yeah, which has been a great avenue for those type of stock. Like, and now you have changed over to Shirley bull.
Yeah, I've changed over to Shirley bull now. I suppose the reason for that was the kill out percentage is a lot better on the Shirleys, and they get there that bit faster too, you know.
Is there any negative to that?
Yeah, it was an unforeseen negative at the time, a couple of years, just what, some 2-3 years of Shirley bull now. Yeah, my supply of good, decent replacements has sort of dried up nearly overnight. So we're looking at AI in cows now to get our replacements, you know. So I'll be picking out 7 or 8 cows through AI with a maternal bull to get my replacements, you know.
Okay, Shane. That's great, Shane. We're going to move on to Ruairi next. We have a video, and we'll talk to you at the panel discussion at the end. And again, don't forget your Q&A tab. So
I am farming 37 hectares in 3 blocks, and we have a spring calving suckler herd of 44 cows, finishing the bulls at under 16 months of age, and any smaller bullocks or bulls are castrated and brought through as stores. They're sold as stores, and heifers are sold as stores as well. We have 2 Shirley stock bulls on the farm, and the heifers are AI'd with the plan of breeding some replacements. Our cows were housed in early November this year due to the bad weather, really, and they're housed according to body condition. We have first calving heifers and in-calf heifers and thinner cows in one shed, kind of middle of the row cows then that aren't as strong but still good in the next shed, and the fatter cows in the third shed. Thinner ones are on the better quality silage, and all the rest of the cows are on haylage. They might get 1 bale of good silage during the week. Mid-December then we'll start feeding pre-calving mineral dusted on top of the silage, and at Christmas then the cows will be penned according to calving dates, and they'll be, the first 30 will be done with Rota Corona for scour. We've got 2 calving pens at the back of the lean-to where the cows calve with a head catcher. They're cleaned out once a week, bedded with fresh straw, disinfected. We have a camera overhead to keep an eye on them, good lighting in the shed, good LED lights, they're good and bright. Vet's number is in the phone if needs be. Cows start calving here on the 20th of January and will be finished up by the 31st of March.
That's great, Ruairi. Lovely stock there. And I know body condition is a big thing for you, isn't it? And research will show that the direct link will say with calving ease, and the easier the cow calves, the easier she'll go back and calf. So we'll say you described there, but like actually, how do you do that assessment? We'll say from a practical point of view, body condition to score the cows.
Good evening, Gabriel. Yeah, when the cows come in there, and we'll just go through them visually more than anything, and we pick them off accordingly. I suppose there's heavier cows are always heavier. You kind of know those ones, and put them into one lot. And so that then the first calvers and the in-calf heifers and thinner cows go to one shed, and kind of middle of the road cows go to the other shed. That's the way they're usually penned anyway.
Yeah, and I suppose you have great facilities, and you probably have added to those facilities, has made that job a little bit easier. But for anyone looking in, we'll say that mightn't have those range of facilities. Would you have any advice for those people?
Yeah, I suppose have a little look at your facilities. You know, I'm sure there's an option to half a shed or whatever. But the main thing is when you start housing the cows, or even before. I mean, if you're spring calving in November time, go through your cows, see what way they are, and you know, try and pen them as best you can. But it's then you need to take action, not in January or mid-January for calving in the spring.
And do you find, we'll say, like, what are you targeting for your cow to calve at? Like, she needs to be, have you body condition more, kind of, she needs to be fit, doesn't she? Is probably the word to use.
Fit is it, exactly, yeah. And
is it harder to maintain a cow in a fit condition, or build condition on some of the, maybe the first calvers might be a little bit thin coming in? Do you do anything there? They're probably the most vulnerable, and we're talking about 2-year-old calving. They're probably the most vulnerable group coming in. Like, how do you manage those?
Oh, definitely, yeah, because they're after doing a lot in their first year between rearing the calf and having to go back in calf again. I suppose for me, they're the first group are going to be weaned every year, or the first calf and heifers. So usually kind of end of September, early October, depending on the weather. They're weaned.
You wean them that little bit earlier than the
that little bit earlier, yeah. And hopefully they'll go off then to grass for a month, 6 weeks, and they just get a little bit of time to build a bit of condition. And when they come in too, they're going to be penned with the heifers and thinner cows and get the better silage.
Do you give meal to those?
No.
Yeah.
Look, unless the one is really thin, or if there's an issue there, or a thin cow, yeah, I will if I can.
Are you afraid?
Meal.
Yeah, are you afraid, we'll say, of overfeeding those? Like, it's harder to look after those, really, to build condition.
It is. I'm not, but if it's done in time, if you're going in a month before calving and start stuffing a cow with meal or giving her extra good silage or stuff, then you're only putting it into the calf and you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, actually, right there, the fetus gained 75 to 80% of its total birth weight in the last 3 months. So exactly what you were saying there is to look at body condition at housing, or even a little bit before it. Yeah, it does stack up. We'll say, we talk about body condition and calving ease. Body condition has a big role in calving ease, but the bull also has a big part to play in that regard. Like, and you have probably some issues with Shirley Bull, hadn't you, really, in the last year or two?
Yeah, I had, going back to last spring there, and a little bit the spring before, but he had this double muscle gene, and if he was meeting a cow with the same gene, we were getting these big muscly calves that are big and lazy. And last spring, for instance, we had 2 sections and a couple of really hard calvings, and then you have a big lazy calf that's taking a lot of time to get going, getting them to suck and getting them going. And as a result, last spring, 1 calf that was a section got giant ill, died at 6 weeks. And, it kind of takes the good out of it a little bit. Yeah, they're fabulous looking, big, muscly animals, but at the end of the day, they're not any better. And there's a cost to all that as well.
Yeah, and you're working part-time as well. You don't want that.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, job is quite flexible in that respect. Thankfully, like, my boss is very good. I can go if needs be, but it's just the time they take. That's it. Yeah.
And obviously, you prefer to have a cow calving easily than have good, really good muscly stock, like a cow going back to calf.
Exactly. Yeah. They have lots of room to grow on the outside.
Yeah, perfect, Ruairi. Yeah. Thanks, and we'll bring you back into the panel discussion. So our last stop is with Ken. We'll show his video now.
Hi, my name is Ken Gill. I'm farming in Clonbarogue in County Offaly. I'm an organic farmer. We've about 120 hectares here. It's primarily a suckler to beef with a tillage enterprise as well. The suckler herd consists of about 65 cows. When I bring in heifers, they're calving at 2 years of age every year. I'm 100% AI for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm finding that really good for improving the quality of the stock. I'm finishing all the stock at 2 years of age off of grass, which again saves on a second winter and no extra meal feeding. That's possible because of the red clover doing good weights over the previous winter.
Hi, Ken.
How you doing, Gabriel?
I have a simple question for you. Why are you calving at 2 years of age?
A couple of reasons, and it's partly to do with being organic. I wanted to finish at 2 years of age because I think that makes the most sense. And if you're going to finish without meal and without a lot of expense, finishing them off of grass really made sense. Before I went organic, I had been a split herd. I was calving spring and autumn. So when I decided to go organic, I just made the decision to go 100% autumn calving, and that was a lot of it. The other reason, again, tied in a bit with being organic, is grass is a lot slower in an organic system in the spring, and it just suits that when I'm letting things out, I can let the weanlings out, let the stores out, and then the cows go out they're already weaned. They don't need much of a feed, so it works well from that point of view as well.
Yeah, so it's essentially versus calving at 3, and did you ever calve at 3? Like it's an extra year without producing anything.
Yeah,
really.
I'd say when I was split
Yeah.
herd, I'd have been calving at 30 months because I would have let the spring ones calve in the autumn and the spring. But once I went to 100% autumn calving, really there wasn't any other option. It didn't make sense to me to hold on to a cow for a full extra year. And as I said, Teagasc said it was possible, so I believed them.
But like less than 25%, I said earlier, calve at 2 years of age, and maybe you can understand why. But like if you were to give them any advice, like we'll say for calving at 2 years of age to work, and it is contentious, like what would your advice be regards the stages of the heifer?
I think part of it,
or maybe the type of heifer as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's because I've been 100% AI and I've been doing a lot of AI, not for terminal, for replacement. And when you've bred for replacement, that heifer is capable of calving. So really, I think, the thing is to start AI and for replacement, and then when those heifers come on, they're well able. When I started at first, I would have weighed them just to make sure they're hitting their weights. They need to be at that 390, 400 kilos. But at this stage, I'm picking primarily off of the ICBF figures. Pick my 10 or 15 heifers, whatever it'll be, based on the figures. I get them in the yard then, and if there's a couple that look a bit small, at that stage, I'll just take them off. But yeah.
And I suppose the fact you're calving so compactly in 6 weeks as well, you have a choice of heifers, really, don't you?
Yeah, it means that they're all there at the same age, and all my heifers then are available. So it's just a case of picking the best. And I'm a real firm believer in those ICBF figures. And so at this stage, I'd be looking at anything that's hitting kind of 150 euros on that euro scale. Anything under that, I probably won't breed from.
Okay. And we'll say she's now 380, 390 kilos. You inseminate her. She's going to calve at 22 to 26 months of age. Do you treat your heifers or group of heifers any differently to your cows, like are they a priority group, for example?
No, again, a bit different than the two lads because of its autumn calving. I haven't really seen any need. Once they're out, the first year they're there getting the good grass to hit the weights. But once they're in calf, then they go along with the others, and they don't really, I don't think they need anything special at that stage. No.
Okay. And do you get nervous when the heifer is calving at 2 years of age?
Not anymore. To be quite honest, I was looking back on the figures for this, and I've had something like 40 or 50 heifers have calved in the last 4 or 5 years, and only 2 of those needed any assistance until things went wrong.
Yeah, and I suppose we get to that, and I suppose it's down to choice of bull, and maybe that brings us into my slide earlier on where you have mortality figures are 8 and 9%. Like what happened there?
Very simple. I had one bullock, and I don't know how, but bull that should have been a bullock. He got through somehow, wasn't castrated, and he caused me a huge amount of problem. I had a lot of heifers, and I ended up with 2 and 3 C-sections, and I lost a good few calves. It really just underlined for me how important the decisions I had been making up to then, picking the right bull to go with the right heifers. And there was just one kind of very interesting point. I had 2 heifers that I had picked out for AI. They didn't go in calf. I put them back in with the stores. He put them in calf. They calved on their own, no problem. And I think it proved the point that if you've the right heifer, you can just about get away with the wrong bull. But if you've the wrong heifer and the wrong bull, it's a complete disaster.
And normally in your AI, like what kind of figures are you looking for those heifers? Like what type of bull do you use? Like do you obviously look at reliability?
I'm using an Angus bull, and at one stage when the figures would come back from the factory, you'd look and you'd see all your lightest ones, and you'd look and see, oh yeah, they're heifers calves. But after 4 or 5 years of breeding good replacements, the heifers calves are not coming in that much less. And there are some very good, easy calving, but terminal bulls out there that, will come out easy enough, but will still put on the weight. So at this stage, the heifers calves aren't doing that much worse than the cows.
Yeah. So, I suppose it's just to get that confidence for anyone that's maybe just pick the right heifer, have her at the right weight, look after that bit better, like Ruairi's doing there, maybe weaning them that bit early. It's that second year. And have you any issues in the second year getting her in calf? Obviously
No,
not.
I haven't really. I mean, you lose a few every year, and it is disappointing because, as I say, they're really good heifers. They're good figures there, and you hate to lose them. But there is a kind of a theory out there that if you keep picking the ones that go back in calf easily, eventually end up with a more fertile herd, and eventually, it will pay. So to try and keep chasing them, I will AI them. It's 6 weeks, so most of them get 2 AIs. If they're not in calf at that stage, they're gone.
Yeah, and obviously they're fertile then because it's 2 rounds and going calf. They're a very fertile herd. Yeah, perfect. So I'll ask Ruairi and Shane maybe to turn on their cameras, and we'll maybe have a discussion between all of us. And maybe we're just following on the 2-year-old calving, like Shane and Ruairi, you're in spring calving systems. Shane, like, what's the story with you and 2-year-old calving? Like, what percentage of your herd is calved at 2 years of age, or do you do anything different maybe to Ruairi?
I calf in all 100% of my replacements are calved at 2 years of age, and they're and I keep them in the herd. I just today for the crack, I went to look back at last year's heifers, and I looked at they've all calved, and they're all 10 days ahead, so that have calved roughly between the bunch of them that have calved 355 days ago at 2 years old, and now they're 3 years old and they're the second calf there, like. So it's not an obstacle for them to go back and calf. My heifers have calved sooner again, so it's not an obstacle for them to come back and calf, but calf them at 2,
It proves that they will go back and calve. And do you treat them any differently, Shane, will say, like, as regards to as a group?
At the beginning, when I first started off, I might have been giving them meal in the back end and up to maybe Christmas before the calf in February. And as I've upped my game with the silage quality, so it's just they get first cut silage, top quality silage once they're housed. Plus, I've also started calving them a bit later. I used to sort of calf them at the beginning, and they're calving towards the tail end of the calf, and now sort of from halfway to the end now. And I find that they've less of a gap once they've calved when they go out on grass. So I feel that helps them go back and calf quicker. They don't lose too much condition. Like I've noticed down through the years, a heifer will melt very quickly if she's not looked after, especially if they're calving earlier on, they're inside a bit longer. So I calf them a bit closer to grass, and they don't lose much condition. And I feel that's why I have no trouble getting them back in calf again,
What's your experience with 2-year-old calving, Ruairi? Is it kind of similar, or what do you do?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, there's just you mentioned it there from last year. Shane spoke about there. We lost one heifer that didn't go back in calf, and the others I have this year. The last one actually was the last of our cows calved today.
Yeah.
So no hassle. And the same thing, Shane is right there, that they kind of, if you're calving a bit too early and there's a lot of other calvings going on at the time, you kind of need a little bit of care initially. Sometimes you have ones on with calves and things. And if you haven't pens enough, you can run out quick enough. Yeah. So it's nice if they calve when things are a little bit quieter and they calve in front, and you give them a bit of time.
Yeah.
This year, for instance, we have 6 heifers calves, and we just have shed space where they're in the shed on their own with their calves for now, and it's grand, So,
yeah. Okay. They get a bit of TLC as the thing.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of room without being bullied and whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
So
very good.
Yeah.
And I often equate to building a suckler herd a bit like building a county team. It's all about the replacements coming in every year. Like, say, go back to you, Ken, like, what is your replacement policy? You kind of touched on it there. You're picking your best heifers, but you breed within the herd, obviously, with your AI. Like, that's
your
policy.
So it's very much picking the best cows and putting those in, cows with the best maternal figures, and using a good maternal bull on them.
Yeah.
And, as I said already about the ICBF figures, I really think they're great. And you were talking about the other stuff, and you get kind of competitive then. You start to look and see what other guys are doing, and, you want to be in that.
Yeah.
So, when you're talking about building a county team, I'm kind of looking for an all-star team. I want them all 4 and 5 stars, and that's it really makes a difference. We're talking about profitability here as well.
Yeah.
And because all mine go to the factory August, September every year, it's very easy to compare one year to another. And I've really noticed a difference over 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Same number of cattle, but you know, the bottom line is a bit better every time.
Yeah. You want to come in there, Shane? Did you?
Yeah, just the point Ken made earlier on too about the offspring of his heifers the first year. Like at the when I first started off, you would always pick out the heifer's calf at weaning, but now they have caught up. Like I've down through the last couple of years, I've bred off heifers calves, heifers, if you know what I mean. They were hitting their target weight that good, and I've heifers calves there that have a bull calf of a heifer. They're still making the grade as an under 16-month bull. Like, you know, they're still doing the biz there. Like, you know, it might be a little bit lighter, but they're still fit for slaughter at 15 and a half months, you know.
Great, yeah. Ruairi, you have a slightly different policy.
Yeah, I buy in dairy calves in various breeds and rear them. The odd one might get put on a cow if we lose a calf or whatever, but otherwise we just milk replace for them and carry them through. And we're still at calving at 2 years of age. And I'm picking a few heifers from my own sucklers each year as well. But those heifers then, we're AIing them to a maternal like bull sailor we used a bit last year, or limousine, and any heifer calves they should have hopefully will be kept on as a replacement as well.
And you're buying in, is that for milk reasons or
for milk reasons? Yeah, as well. We have a Charlie stock bull in the farm, but I suppose because presently there's only 44 sucklers there, I'm afraid to go too much maternally, maybe with a bull or AI, that I end up with less saleable stock.
Yeah,
I'm seeing that a little bit with me anyway. I like my Charlie cattle to sell, to kill, or to store, sell.
Yeah.
So we have in the past used AI on cows and heifers and cemental sale or different breeds. They're fine, but we were ending up with too many bull calves. And at the time we were selling stores, and they just weren't the same as Charlie's to sell.
Yeah.
Simple.
And we're talking about the last few minutes about bringing heifers in, but obviously you're going to have to be removing cows as well. Like, and we'll say your favorite cow, or the cow that has produced a really good quality calf consistently, and she's not in calf now, or it's not scant in calf. Going back to your Ken there, what's your policy in that regard?
Yeah, and policy is that she just doesn't stay. It's just too hard to keep on. It's too expensive to keep on. If she's not in calf, no matter how good she is, she just has to go. And sometimes it is hard because you might have some of your better ones. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at profitability, it definitely makes a difference to just keep moving on. And that's why when you've got good replacements coming on, you don't mind so much. At least what's coming in is going to be as good, or hopefully a bit better.
What's going out, yeah. Shane, would you be similar, or what's your policy?
100%, yeah. But I'd scan mine in September, and whatever's empty is sold. As Ken said, they're just too expensive to keep on for another winter. It's all. The farm has to be profitable. It can't afford to be carrying passengers, you know. So that's it, you know.
I suppose, Ruairi, and you can understand why some farmers, and it goes back to not having maybe enough heifers coming in, that tend to keep those type of cows, you know, that has a brilliant calf every 18 months. But like, what do you think of that? Like, or what do you do on the farm?
No, because they're just hanging around. They're eating, you know, they're not making money. I mean, if she's not in calf, give her a tap in the back and she'll run up the ramp. You've done a good job and you're here, but you're not going to hang around to do a bad job.
Yeah.
Simple.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose you're dealing with a lot of stock there, lads, and calving cows and bulls. Like, we haven't mentioned kind of docility, and again, a bit like the cow that doesn't go in calf. What's your take on docility? Back to you, Shane.
At the beginning, when I was expanding the herd, I sort of had to overlook docility, because I just, you know, when you're trying to build numbers, it's hard to do that. So I did have a few wilder cows, but once I got my numbers to where I want them to be, and that's where I am now, you do keep the quiet cows. And I've found with the few wilder cows we had, they made a devil of the rest of them. Once they're gone, the rest of the herd is a lot calmer too, you know. So it's a lot more pleasurable place to work when you have all quiet cows, you know.
Yeah, and Ken, like a lot of farmers would have at least one experience. I don't know. I'm only throwing this at you. I don't know if you had or not, of maybe a
Yeah,
close one.
yeah, very simple. And again, totally my own fault. Just when to check a calf, I calve out, they're out in the field. So, and I just went to check, and the cow was a bit close, and I just got a little tip on the chest. I was very lucky that it wasn't any more than that. But I have a notebook that I write everything down in when they're calving, and anything that looks at me for more than a few hours after they calve gets a little TBC put her by her name, which stands for to be culled.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I'd some they'd had 4 or 5 calves, no problem. And then again, just at calving, they were very, very hard to handle. And I said, look, it might be just a once off, but every single one of them were as bad the next year. So I did a big clear out then at that stage. So yeah, very strict rule. If they're not able to be handled when they calve, they're gone.
Are you taking any chances, Rory?
No, the same as, look, you will have odd ones. You know, sometimes animals can get a spook too, and they'll react to their mothering nature kicks in.
Yeah,
but
you've young kids down there too. Like you
yeah,
something to be
yeah. They don't. I try and make sure they don't win the calf and shed. Full stop. Yeah, just in case, especially if I'm not there. But again, there were wild cows there over the years, and we moved them on because, like as Shane said, one cow will drive the whole lot wild.
Okay.
And the rest of the cows won't bite in her. So,
just one last question. We'll say and I see there's 28 questions in on the Q&A there. If you had one tip for anyone watching in regards to breeding, what would it be? And maybe hopefully we have 3 different tips. Like, let's say we're starting back with you again, Shane. Like, if you had one tip for someone that's kind of wants to look at the reports and see that's not where they want to be, what would it be?
Just keep it simple, and if you're not where you want to be on your report, like you're not going to move a bit. It's like a big oil tank. You're not going to move it overnight. Like, just make out a 5-year plan and tip away at it for the 5 years. Be it reduce your calving interval by a year every year or a couple of months or whatever. Do you know? And you're not going to do it overnight. And I don't think you can. And don't. Just have a 5-year plan and come up with what suits your own farm then off that plan, you know.
Yeah. Rory, what would your tip be?
Yeah, sure. Something similar to Shane there. Without the bull in a date and decide on a date you're taking them away, you know, do it gradually, maybe go from whatever here it may have been a long term, go back to 12 weeks, bring it back to 10 weeks the following year, but take away the bull. That's what we stopped.
Okay, perfect. And Ken, lastly.
Thanks, lads. That was my 2. But anyway,
think of something different.
Yeah, I think it's start now. I mean, there's no saying about planting trees. The best time was 20 years ago. The best time to start is as soon as possible, because it does take time, but it definitely pays, and it is worth it. I mean, if you sit down, it only maybe takes an hour or so to sit down and pick your bulls and pick individual bulls to go with individual cows. Might take a little bit of time, but if you look at the difference between a cow that's coming in at €100 and a cow that's maybe coming in at €200 in the ICBF, if you have 40 cows, that's 4,000 quid of a difference maybe. And you know, I don't know, I can't talk for the other 2 lads, but I know there's only an odd job I do in the farm where I get €4,000 an hour. So you know, that'll be it.
Yeah, sounds good that way. Okay, Martina, I think we're ready for questions from the Q&A.
The audience. For Shane, Shane, did you ever try any of the Solaire or Charlet heifers as replacements?
No.
Any reason?
There was no really. Well, they didn't have great figures, Martina, from the Charlet side. You know, they were very low, so that was the main reason. Like, you know.
So it was a bull with Charlet bull with very low milk. And then I suppose for everyone, would the panel have any comments on stock bulls compared to AI when it comes to improving herd genetics? So say some of you have used both, but maybe we'll start with Ken there.
Yeah, well, I'm 100% AI, and the reason is very simple. You've got the absolute choice of the best of bulls, and you can pick 10, 12 different bulls if you want to specifically go with a cow. I understand that I'm lucky enough to be able to farm full-time, and not everyone can, and a bull then does a job for you. But a bull will only do one job for you. And if I had any advice to people, maybe it's, you know, pick some and AI them, even if you're running a bull with the rest. But that'd be just me.
And how would you match them? Like if you're looking at picking out an AI bull to use on one of your heifers, what would you be looking for?
Ease of calving is first. Docility comes in actually pretty high there as well. But, you know, you look at a terminal figure that's reasonable as well. And you can get that. And you can get that in lots of different breeds. I mean, I tend to focus a bit on Angus because I'm organic and I'm trying to finish very easy in that. But there's plenty of easy calving from other breeds that'll do the job for you as well.
And Ruairi, just on yours, your bull had a double muscle gene. How did you know he had that?
We don't got a monostatin test done on it. That's where it showed up. But obviously we knew when the calves wouldn't come out of the cows, we had to have sections that really showed it. Yeah, with the fact that it only came on the odd cow, it was a bit, you know, it wasn't them all, thankfully.
So there was
but it still wouldn't put me off a stock bull, no way. No.
Yeah. And you can now go in, you'll see that myostatin on the AI catalogue, and you can go in and see them on your cows, on your ICBF report. So they're there. It's just a matter of going in and looking, and it's only a very recent thing. Now, here's a nice question for you all. If you had a really good maternal cow, but she's only 2 or 3 star on the ICBF figures, would you still breed the replacements offer? And we'll start with Shane.
Yeah, I would.
Go on, any elaboration?
If she's a good cow, she's plenty of milk. Do you know, if the cow is doing all her KPIs, if she's calving every 365, if she's plenty of milk, she's weighing a good heavy calf, surely her daughter should do the same thing. So that's my thing on it, you know.
And Ken?
Probably not, because I just love those figures.
That's okay. And Ruairi?
Oh, definitely, I would go with your own gut first, and then ICBF. ICBF aren't always right.
Yeah, and that is the point. Like, you know, if you go along, as one of my famous saying is, "Who knows Usain Bolt's brother? Nobody." Like, you know, so you know, you have the big thing is you have those, they're proven in your herd, but your ICBF figures are there to give you a guide. Like, you know, so it's I suppose an assistance. For the lads that are calving there at 2 years of age, what weight at bulling would you not calve her at 2 years of age, or not buller, I suppose? Maybe we'll start with Shane as well.
It's an under 380.
Okay.
You have to look at the mother as well. The mother's mature weight too. So, you know, if you had the mother was a very heavy cow, you might have to up that a bit, or if she was a very lighter cow, you might be able to drop it 5 kilos, or you know. But the general rule for me is 380 is my line in the sand, you know.
Yeah. And what's your mature cow weight then?
655 at the moment.
Okay. And Ken?
Yeah, very similar actually. Yeah, I wouldn't like to go under that 380 figure. The one thing I have noticed over the last while is that the older cows seem to be a good bit bigger. When you run them through the crush, they're really the full of it. Whereas after 4 or 5 years of breeding now, they're still producing the right calf, they're still producing the weight, but they're just a smaller cow. And to be honest, again, in organics, because feed's often quite scarce, it's definitely a help. Definitely a help.
And Ruairi, where would you have a cut-off point?
I suppose the fact that I'm breeding a dairy bred calves, kind of 350 for some of them. You know, they might be slightly taller than that and mightn't have the same conformation or condition as others. But like going down the road further and mature cows, it's not affecting them a bit. Once they get the time, once they have their first calf, you know, at the end of the year to wean early and look after them, should be fine.
Okay, and just a question, and it will be covered on tomorrow night, but have any of you experience of using sex semen for breeding replacements?
I have, yeah. 2 years ago, I used sex semen on my heifers with great results. We got a great strike on it, and with some fabulous heifer calves on the ground this time last year. So I decided to expand it a bit last summer and use it on some of my mature cows, and I picked out the cows I was going to use, the best figures I had and everything, and we had a very bad result. I think some of it was down to the weather, that very hot weather we got in June. The cows didn't come a bulling after 21 days, but I found after 5 and 6 days they started to come a bowling then. So I think it's something to do with the heat. So I've had one good year, one bad year. So that's my experience.
Will you go again?
Yeah, I think I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in fairness, for a herd my size that can't justify 2 stock bulls, sex semen has the potential to be a game changer. Really, that's my belief on it. So if I can get some really, really good maternal replacements through using sex semen and still have a very terminal stock bull there, I think it's a huge potential.
Yeah, using that technology that is there.
Yeah.
Ken, what about yourself? You're doing all AI too?
Yeah, unfortunately not allowed because I'm organic. It's one of those things I'm not allowed to do. Now I was quite tempted and I looked into it. The only thing I would say is that I ended up 2 years in a row with quite a lot of bullocks. Some of them were beautifully bred, 3 generations of replacement, and then they turn out to be a bull. But to be honest, I haven't seen that they're a major problem when it comes to the bottom line in the factory either. They're still doing good weights and they're still doing okay. So even though they were bred to be replacements, it's not a major problem for me at the end of the day.
Okay. And I suppose a question here, I might rephrase it a little bit. On the ICBF figures, are you happy to use the ICBF figures, or what's your thought process? I know there's been the change in the figures and it has affected your breeding herds to a level. So maybe Ruairi, we can start with you.
Yeah, look, I always go with my own judgment on it first, and we will look at them thereafter. Yeah, I won't say any more on that.
Yeah, you are rebuilding your replacements, and then you're buying in the replacements from the dairy side of the house too. So that's where you're getting.
Yeah, and if we can see a few figures on the calves before we buy them, definitely, that's a help. If they're good, that's a good starting point then.
And you're looking at maybe breeding some of your own better heifers there.
Yeah, and yeah, I suppose. Look, I'll tell you now, honestly, this year I had heifers picked to bull that were Charlie heifers. I know in my heart and soul they'll have milk and stuff, but their figures are crap. So we ended up picking a few that will have crap milk because of figures. That's my own belief. Look, at time will tell.
Okay, Shane, what's your opinion?
Yeah, look, there's an awful lot of data there in the figures of the ICBF, and they're fierce useful, and I went with Solaire at the beginning there 10 years ago now, and it just so happened that they had very high figures, and they took a bit of kicking in the last review there in November, but still they're pretty good, and I'd have good faith in the ICBF's figures. Now, as I said, what Ruairi said there, you go with your gut in some cows, like I've said before, but I think a combination of both, and not putting all your eggs in one basket maybe, but there is an awful lot of data there, and it's very useful data, so.
Yeah, and keeping your eye then on your weaning weights. And Ken, your comment?
Yeah, well, I've already said I am a huge fan of them. To me, it's everyone says, "Oh, but I've got this cow and that cow," and if you look at over 100 cows, on average, sure, 95 of them might be not quite, but 95 of them will be better, and maybe the other 5 won't show up in the figures, but overall, it's definitely worth it.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left, and there's a question that came in about finding it difficult to support your family, and would you encourage other people to take a plunge into suckler farm? And so I suppose from a financial side of things, we'll go back around the way. I suppose we'll start with Ken.
Yeah, look, I'm particularly lucky. I have a farm that's in one block, and it's big enough that I'm able to farm full time, which obviously not a lot of people are able to do. Would I encourage people into it? I think it's a great life, and very much what Shane was talking about with family being able to have that flexibility to go and bring kids matches and stuff like that. Absolutely. I'm lucky. I love it. Yeah.
Shane?
Yeah, it's a great way of life, but you need to be on top of your game to be at sucklers if you want to make a profit. You have to be very efficient, and you can't have to do it. You have to do it right, or you won't make money. But it is a great way of life. It's a great lifestyle, and that's it, really.
And Ruairi?
Yeah, the same as the lad said. Yeah, I love doing it, and it is profitable. You say it works. I work part-time. My wife has a good job. It all comes in together to kind of keep the house and keep everything going. And I would encourage it in the future, yeah, and encourage succulent farming full stop. You know, it got a lot of bad press for years, but definitely, no, it's good, good.
It's good to have the positivity. So listen, we're coming up on the hour, so we need to call our session to an end. I'd like to thank Shane, Ruairi and Ken for agreeing to come on our webinar and for being so honest. I'd also like to thank their local advisors, Charlie Devaney, Anya Butler and Paul Gibney. They're all there inside in offices helping the lads with the technology and for getting ready for this evening. I'd also like to thank yourselves for joining us and all the engagement, huge amount of questions coming in there, and that hope you'll join us next Monday evening for our second of the 3 webinars, where we're going to have Angus Fahy, John Dunn and Professor David Kenny from Teagasc and Grange. And we'll have that session. I know some questions came in on AI and different aids for AI, but we'll talk about them on Monday evening. And the moderator will be Aisling Malloy, who's another one of our team members. They'll cover getting the cow back in calf, you know, your heat detection aids, records, and then I suppose the horror of what happens when things go badly wrong and how you can get them back on track. So the recording from tonight will be up on the Teagasc FutureBeef webpage. So again, thanks a million for joining us, and you don't have to stay home, so you're all there. But thanks a million and take care, and thanks lads. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.